everyone. I'm Obscure Girl. I like movies. I like weird movies. I like weird, trippy, obscure movies that I feel like no one has heard of. Whether that be because they're super old, or because the marketing was really bad, or because it's something that you thought was a fever dream you had when you were five. I'm here to tell you it wasn't. Let's talk about it. Now, today's video is one that was actually recommended by my therapist. Hey, Liv. And she was, I was telling her about my Return to Oz video and about how I just love, how I love that movie, even though parts of it can be so traumatizing. And she's like, well, why don't you make a video listing the most traumatic moments in kids' movies? And I thought that was a great idea until I ended up having to watch all of the clips of some of my favorite movies that are just the most depressing and traumatizing. Also, just for the record, I filmed this whole video yesterday and I was trying out a new video editor and it ended up deleting my whole content. So this is the second time I'm recording this video. So let's hope it goes better than yesterday. So when I say the most traumatizing moments, I don't mean character design. That can be something completely different. Yes, I'll talk about character designs in this, but that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on what you're seeing, the act that you are seeing happen in a movie that is traumatizing. Now, whether that be talking about, something horrifying that is happening to these characters, or, just the endless sea of dead parent scenes that happens in children's movies, that is what we're focusing on, not so much the actual, like, the design of the character. However, I will throw in there that sometimes, though I'm not focusing on the look of a character, the sounds that some of these characters make, that in itself is traumatizing enough for me personally, and that will be mentioned multiple times. So, without any further ado, oh, never mind, hang on one thing. The other thing I will throw out here too is this is a list for only movies that I have seen. This is my list of my opinion and how it has traumatized me personally and how I find it to be, like, ranking in trauma, basically. But it can only be things that I have seen. So I have not seen things like Watership Down because I've heard just how traumatic it is from so many people and I never even bothered. Or The Secrets of Nim because I have a giant rat phobia, which is because of one of the movies on this list. And so I could not even handle that. So those kind of movies will not be seen here. Please don't hate me. If it's not on this list, it's either because I haven't seen it or because, freaky kid that I am, I didn't find it as traumatizing as I found it awesome. So now, without any further ado, let's get into the top 10 most traumatizing moments in children's movies. Number 10, The Land Before Time. This is one of those movies that is a staple of saddest moments in kids' movies kind of thing. It's in there in all the memes. So it obviously was going to get added in here at some point. Now, I have not watched this movie since I was in single digits because of this scene. And I am talking, of course, about the scene where Littlefoot's mother passes away and everything she says to him and how he knows he needs to go on his own with other babies. Basically, they're all pretty much babies and they have to go on their own to go find safety from all these things that want to eat them, because one of them just took down his mom that he thought was invincible, because we all think our moms are invincible. So that was absolutely heart-rendering, and so I had to watch that scene for the first time in literal decades, and I remembered why I mostly stuck to watching the sequels when I was growing up, because the sequels didn't have this in it. Oof. Oh, it watching it for the first time in so many years, it's such a gut punch. It was really the one thing that, like, and I had to rewatch a lot of scenes that I haven't watched in a while to put this together. This was the one that genuinely made me tear up. It was that one hurt, and I remember just how much it hurt. And it was like seeing it for the first time all over again because it's been so long. So yeah, Littlefoot losing his mom, that's our number one, or number 10. Sorry, that's where we're kicking this off on the trauma train. Woof. Number 9, Coraline. Now, I originally was just going to be listing this. The main scene that popped in my head, obviously, was the button eyes. When the other mother tries to get Coraline to stay with her, but only if she sews buttons into her eyeballs. And like the whole, so sharp you won't feel a thing. Like that, okay, that was a lot. And this is probably one of the newest movies on this list, too, because Henry Selick is not scared to scare kids because he knows they're tougher than they think they are. They're tougher than, sorry, parents, most of you think they are. They can handle this kind of thing. But anyway, I'll rant more later. But in watching clips for this, the other things that I kind of noticed that could very much be counted in this. First of all, again, you have as Coraline is starting to see the truth about these wonders. When you have the mouse circus in the attic is no longer the mouse circus, and you see the upstairs neighbor is just a pile of rats in his clothing, and the voice is horrifying. And when they all just come out and kind of attack, again, phobia. I still to this day cannot handle that scene. That is one of those ones where it's like, yep, yep, let me know when it's over. All right, is the squeaking done? Uh, and again, I'm not a super squeamish person during movies, but that's one that it's rough for me, big time. I cannot handle it. So seeing that, and then just same thing with the dogs that are now vampires, and the one real one that I'm like, this is the actual most traumatizing part of this movie, and it's over so fast. It is over in the blink of an eye, and you barely even get to process it. But I'm talking about the other YB. When the other mother brings in this other YB that Coraline will find less annoying, basically, so she has someone to share these wonders with. And first thing that happens is she ends up sewing a smile onto his face so he physically cannot frown anymore. But then YB saves her and gets her out of there. And then the next thing you see of him when she makes it back to the other side is the other mother killed YB. Like the one friend that Coraline thought she actually had because she didn't realize that, real world YB is a little boy and therefore might be a little annoying, even though he definitely cares just as much as other YB does. But this is the one that she thought was her friend here. And you just see his clothes hanging from a flagpole. As you know, she, like, because they're all dolls, right? Completely let the stuffing out of him and he is disintegrated and gone. And she has his clothes out there like very much like Roman Empire. Like this is the spike, like the head on the spike on the gate of the city, just to like as a warning, basically. And it's gone so fast. You just see it, and she's like, "Why be?" And then that's it. And then she has to keep going. Like you have no time to process that her friend has been killed for being her friend and for trying to save her. Oh my god! So, yeah, when you think of Coraline, obviously you're going to think of the button eyes. But justice for other YB. Okay? Like, RIP, other YB. Number 8, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Yes, we are bringing up the Large Marge scene. Of course. How could we not? Now, I'm actually going to throw out there, I had actually seen the Large Marge scene before I ever actually watched the movie. I was a little kid and like single digits again, probably. And I was flipping between like the 4 channels I was allowed to watch at the time. And I think it was on Disney Channel. But I tuned in just at the point where Pee Wee's getting picked up by this truck. And you have almost cartoonishly serious truck driver that is Large Marge and, telling him the story. And then finally you have like the looked like this, and the crazy, crazy, amazing practical effects that's just iconic to this day. And it even like has that whole Judge Doom kind of feel to it, like when I killed your brother, I looked just like this. Like that whole trope and everything was perfect. And it almost feels too like, and after that, when Peavy goes to the bar and everyone's like, she's been dead for blah, blah, blah years. Like, this is very much that old ghost story of like the woman in white on the road or the hitchhiker, that ghost story trope. This is just Pee Wee's version of it, and Tim Burton with Pee Wee's version of it. And it's solid. It is very solid. Like the whole tone of it, the music, and those, again, fantastic practical effects. It's good for a decent scare. That was probably one of the first jump scares of my young life up to that point. And again, like, if you're watching it for the first time when you're super tiny, that's going to be like a trauma that sticks in your brain, I think. And it wasn't until years later that I actually ended up watching the rest of the movie. But that's still my favorite scene, hands down. Hands down, still my favorite scene. Number 7, The Dark Crystal. Now, this is another one of those movies where I put it on the list for a certain scene, and in watching the clips for it, ended up finding another scene that was even more traumatic than what I had remembered being the traumatic scene. So originally, I put this on the list for the podlings getting their souls and essence sucked out by the crystal. You have them in the scientist lab in this like underground dungeon layer of the Skeksis, and this podling goes from being this adorable, cute little thing to zombified, and you're watching his soul be drained out of him so that the Skeksis race can go on. And now, again, this is one of those where it's like, if we were talking about character design as the traumatic part of this movie, Skeksis wins all day, every day. That is one of the most brilliant, horrifying character designs of all time. I love Jim Henson's dark period. I love that dark side. And this movie was definitely what kicked that off for the most part. And it was brilliant, and it was horrifyingly beautiful. And I mean, the Skeksis character design, Aughra's character design was sensational, and just the sounds and the and the gurgling and all that stuff. It's brilliant. That alone is enough to traumatize someone. And then you see this scene. But in looking through it, there's also another scene where the emperor dies, basically. You have all these horrifying Skeksis surrounding his bed, just waiting for him to go. And the scene where he does not go quickly. It is very much just this like death rattle kind of sound. And you watch the emperor pass away, and then you watch him disintegrate almost in like slow motion as like bit by bit of him turns to dust. And all the Skeksis are like, all right, who's next? And they just like don't even care. And they're just like, all right, ready to fight to the death to see who can be the next emperor. And that's messed up. That was a beautifully, delightfully horrifying scene. And I'm sorry that I forgot about it in my consideration of this movie. Well done. Well done. Number 6, The Last Unicorn. So, the beginning ones on this list were ones that, kind of, I think were traumatic for me more as a child. These, for the rest of this list, are ones that still kind of get to me as an adult. Um, and the Last Unicorn very much is kind of part of that. It had a gigantic impact on me as a child. And yes, you have the Red Bull, and you have the like identity dysmorphia of when the last unicorn becomes a human and woman and doesn't know who she is anymore. And you even have that really cool scene with the drunk skeleton when he realizes he accidentally let a unicorn into the place where they're not supposed to go, and just the voice changes and the not that one unicorn, like that was nice and scary and messed up too. There's so many moments in this movie that could be creepy or traumatic. I am talking about Mommy Fortuna, this old crazy hag lady that and the scenes with her and the harpy, especially their battle of wits and their final showdown. messed me up. Mommy Fortuna was my monster under the bed. I was convinced as a child that she was what was waiting for me under the bed to find out if I wasn't sleeping when I was supposed to be so she could eat me. That was that was what I was terrified of as a kid. Was this decrepit, scary looking old lady who has a twisted version of Angela Lansbury's voice and was waiting for me to be doing something I shouldn't so she could eat me. And to this day I still watch it. I'm just like, yep, I remember. I remember. Yes, ma'am. No, I'm asleep. It's fine. Uh, yeah, and the scene with the harpies, especially the harpy, was a great character design and a great voice. Great voice for the harpy. So when those two have their final showdown, it is genuinely like, oh, okay, there's this is intense. This is an intense scene. And again, the Red Bull is great and intense as well. But for me, Mommy Fortuna, um, never forget. Number 5, Disney. Yes, I cheated a little bit because I realized pretty quickly going through this whole list and everything that there are too many moments in Disney movies specifically to be able to lump them into the rest of the list. So I'm just going to say that this is the zoomed out version. And later on, I will be making a top 10 most traumatic moments in specifically Disney movies. And that will be, let's say, the zoomed in version. So whether it be again the endless slew of parent, you know, off screening, or like Mufasa, if we're talking about Brave Little Toaster, the Horned King in the Black Cauldron, which I will be doing a full video on the Black Cauldron because I love that movie. That is my top one of my top 5 favorite Disney movies. Um, or if we are talking about that which we do not talk about, which is The Fox and the Hound. We don't talk about that, but it's on the list. Or, the imprisonment of Dumbo's mom. All of that, the transformation scene in Pinocchio. Oh my God. I actually watched a documentary, one of my favorites, and talks about the history of horror films in American history in comparison to what was going on in the country at the time. It's called Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue. Great documentary. Sometimes I watch it when I'm in the mood for a horror movie and I can't pick one. But they had a whole part about how Disney was a lot of kids' introduction to horror, and they talked about that Pinocchio scene. So Disney in general has so many scenes, whether intentional or unintentional. And this is where I'll rant just a little bit again, because Disney understands that your kids can handle being scared. Because, and I thought a lot about this, the scenes in the scary scenes in movies that your kids watch are training them for the scary scenes they're going to face in real life. And what I mean by that is, I don't mean, they're actually going to face like a headless witch coming for them, or that they're actually going to deal with the swamps of sadness, or, an air conditioner that has a breakdown. I'm just saying that that feeling of the hair sticking up on the back of your neck, like something wrong is about to happen, that comes from movies, will help train your kids to potentially dangerous situations in real life. I think that is the like the anti-sheltering of your kids, is just showing them this kind of content, showing them these things that make them know it's okay to be scared. Like, that's fine. You're going to be okay at the end of it. But it's also teaching them the signs to look for in real life when something potentially dangerous might actually be happening. I think that is vitally important, and I think that's something that Disney and the rest of these movies understood, is that your kids are tougher than you think, man. Like, whether they're freaky kids like me that have a higher tolerance and enjoyment of this stuff, or even if they're ones that, like, yeah, they're going to sleep in your bed for a couple of nights, but they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. Let them watch the Scary Kids movie. Number 4. Speaking of headless witches, Return to Oz. Yes, from my very first video, my comfort movie. And what brought on this whole list to begin with, honestly. was just, I love this movie, and I, am very desensitized to a lot of things. Like, again, some of the character designs I know some people are really freaked out about. But I do acknowledge there are traumatic scenes in this movie, more than most, if I'm being honest. Whether we're talking about the very beginning where Dorothy's about to be electrocuted and ends up having to escape an asylum and jump into a river in a lightning storm, or just the Wheelers in general and that creepy, creepy laugh that they have as they're trying to get to Dorothy. But for me, it's the headlessness. It is 100% the headlessness. Whether we're talking about Mombi just nonchalantly switching out what head she wants to wear based on her mood, or just seeing the heads themselves in their cases, looking around, super like aware of their surroundings, or especially when we get to the scene where Dorothy finds Mombi's original head in case 31 and she wakes up and you have that voice, that Dorothy Gale. Oh my God. Again, it's ingrained in me. It is in my core DNA, that scene. And then when the headless body wakes up and just jerks up and is jerking around, that's messed up. Why is it so jerky? It's so creepy. It's so creepy. And the music swell, and then all the heads start screaming, and it is so messed up. It's, again, much appreciation. It's glorious. I love it. But oh my God, is it a messed up scene? And I will appreciate it until my last days. And I hope you appreciate it too. This is one of those scenes that is from a movie that was made for kids that is potentially scarier than a lot of things that were intentionally made to scare adults. And I love it for it. I love the creativity. I love that they went that extra mile. It's so great. It's so great. Just much appreciation. And yes, that is what inspired this whole list. So, appreciation galore. Number three. A lot of you are going to be surprised that this movie is this low down on the list, even at number three. But yes, we're bringing in the never ending story. This is where Artax is showing up at number three. Yes, obviously, Artax and the Swamps of Sadness is a very, very heartbreaking scene. And again, watching the clip to get ready for this, just refreshed exactly how depressing that is. That this little boy who is a loner and an adventurer, and he's there with his horse, which is his companion and best friend, and they're traveling through these swamps of sadness, and this horse just decides it's giving in to the sadness. And Art texts this, or sorry, Atreyu, this little boy, is just begging and pleading his best friend to just go on and live, and the horse just can't do it. And that scene where he's just begging and screaming, and the horse is just sinking and sinking. That was a well-made scene. That was a very well put together scene. Brava. Emotional response landed. But that's not the only scene in this movie I'm going to talk about. Um, Whether we're also talking about just the nothing in general, and the nothing being the loss of creativity in the human world, or if we're even talking about the scene with Rockbiter, and he had just lost his friends to the nothing, and he has that, they look like big, good, strong hands, don't they? And he's just blaming himself for not being enough to keep his friends and companions from being lost to the nothing. And Atreyu just finds him there in his grief and his blaming himself. And it's just so resigned to, like, yep, oblivion's coming. Or even Morla, the ancient one, when we're talking about that giant turtle that's allergic to humans. And it, again, creepy, creepy character design. I absolutely love it. But when she's just like, yeah, the nothing can come. I've been around long enough. Take it. We're good. I don't care. and just that being so resigned to the end of the world, basically. That's a dark scene. But for me, personally, for me, the most messed up part of this movie is Gamork. It is the wolf. It is the agent behind the nothing. And the character design alone, yes, is like, this is from, growing up as a kid who likes, kids' movies. The wolf is the bad guy, right? Whether it be Beauty and the Beast or Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf is the bad guy. This is, for me, the quintessential the wolf is the bad guy. And the scene at the end where, the nothing is coming and Atreyu finally meets Gamork, and Gamork doesn't realize that he's having a conversation with the one he's been hunting down and trying to unalive this whole time. And they just have this, conversation, and you just see him, Gamork, in the cave, and you mostly are just seeing eyes and fangs. And that in and of itself is really creepy and really traumatizing. But then finally, when Atreyu's just like, you know what? If we're about to die anyway, I'd rather die fighting. Come at me. I'm Atreyu. And it ends so quickly, but the scene where you just, in the blink of an eye, you see Gamork charging Atreyu, and it's over so fast, but you still remember that moment. You remember that blink, that flash of just horror. And for me, that has always been the scariest part of the movie, and the part that's just like, this wolf is hunting down, again, a little boy who's just trying to save the world. And he's losing friend after friend along the way and going through all this trauma. And yeah, even the Sphinx scene as well, where he's going through the Sphinx and he has to be confident in himself, but he comes to this knight that wasn't confident and he's disintegrated in his, shining armor. That's a good scene too. Let's not leave that out of here. But no, for me it was Gamork. And I remember being a little kid and going to the Wisconsin Dells with my parents, and on the main strip they have this haunted house. And for the longest time, like when I was a kid, they had this wolf. Not even in the house. It was at the front entranceway of this haunted house, and it was Gamork. You could not tell little me otherwise. That was Gamork, and it was just a mannequin. It wasn't even an animatronic, but I was waiting. I was waiting for him to so much as blink or sniff at me or anything. But for me, that was the scariest part of the whole haunted house. And it wasn't even inside the haunted house. And again, I obviously have always loved me a good haunted house, like from the dawn of time. But that was the one thing that genuinely gave me the creeps. And it was just because of a scene in a movie and a stuffed fake wolf at the front entranceway in the Wisconsin Dells haunted house. So kudos, Never Ending Story, kudos. Number two. This is a movie I will absolutely be covering because it is, I thought for the longest time that I was the only person who had seen this movie. And when I found the one other person outside of my family that had seen this, I married him. Direct correlation? No. Did it have something to do with it? Maybe. Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Now, growing up in a family of Chicago Irish immigrants, this movie was put in my path quite a bit. Quite a bit. I absolutely loved it growing up. And now when I watch it, I just miss my grandpa. I miss him so much because Darby O'Gill was just that older guy with a fantastic accent who was just up to tricks and mischief and always had a great story to tell, whether it was real or not. Probably not. But, he was always there for the battle of wits, and he was just this awesome, awesome dude. And I'm not going to get emotional thinking about it right now. I'll save that for the full movie, probably. I was going to wait until March for that one, but I might get impatient after having to cover it right here. But Darby O'Gill and the Little People for sure. And specifically, we're going to talk about the Banshee scene. Again, growing up in an Irish family, Banshees were a thing talked about in my household. Absolutely. And this Banshee does not disappoint. This was a scene that, I have always had a high tolerance for scary things in movies. This was a scene that had me hugging my mom so tight or running out of the room until the wailing stopped because that whale. It is a super simple character design. It's like an outline of a woman in a robe. You only actually see an outline of her face for a split second in this movie, but the wailing, again, that's in my soul. That's in my core DNA, is hearing that wail as Darby O'Gill thinks that this banshee is coming to take his daughter's life away. Oh my gosh. And again, the music swell is really great and such a simple but effective effect. And for me, this is as high as it is because it very much was the thing that haunted me as a kid. Absolutely. And there are other scenes in this movie as well. You know, you have the puka scene where his normal brown horse turns into this black puka, which in Irish mythology is a trickster spirit that ends up, you know, again, it's just a simple effect where this horse just has all these flashing light colors flashed on him. And, you know, he's just rearing up a little bit, but all of a sudden, you know, Darby falls down this well and ends up with the leprechauns. Or even the Coche de Bower, which is the carriage that takes you to the afterlife. That was a super creepy scene as well, but gorgeous interior on this carriage, just black leather and gorgeousness. And you know, when Darby goes in there and he's, you know, like resigned to his fate because he's like, my daughter's okay. I gave up myself. I've lived a life, but my daughter's okay. I'm okay going off. And his unlikely bestie in The King of the Leprechauns is there to kind of, you know, ride with him as far as he can. And just the conversation that they have, that can be kind of like a, okay, like, I didn't know we were going there with this, but all right. That can be kind of creepy as well. But for me, that banshee, that wailing, that build up was that was a big staple of my childhood, to say the least. Big time. And yes, I will absolutely be covering Darby O'Gill and the Little People. It's on Disney Plus, but they dubbed it so horrendously. I was so offended by how they dubbed over the original voice actors. Like, and it's not a cartoon at all either. Like they were actual actors, but when you hear it, you're like, that's not her voice. That's not what they sound like. What are you doing? But I digress. Honorable mentions. All right, this is where I'm going to throw in Labyrinth. Labyrinth is my favorite movie of all time. It is one of the top three of my favorite movies of all time. It's tied with two other movies. But so I never was scared or, you know, anything by that movie. Like I said earlier, I love Jim Henson's Dark Era. And Labyrinth is the quintessential moment of that. Everything about that movie is pure gold. You cannot tell me otherwise. I will obviously be doing a video on that at some point, but I'm honestly waiting until I have better equipment and am a little bit more practice at this so I can do that video justice because of just how much I love that movie. But I am going to mention the one part in that movie that did always give me the ick. It's the Fireys scene. It's the Wild Gang, when they all, you know, are just no boundaries on Sarah, and they're just taking limbs off and throwing them and switching them around. But particularly the scene where the one Fiery pulls his eyes out, rolls them like dice, and then swallows them, and they go back into their sockets. Yeah, that gets an honorable mention. I'll throw it there. I will give it there. The only other one that I really kind of would think of for this, again, this is only movies that I have seen, only movies that I actually thought had any kind of traumatic scenes in them. I would throw in, it's not a movie though, so I can't put it on this list, but the TV show Dinosaurs, which was the Jim Henson Disney project, the grandma. In the intro sequence, whenever that, you know, grandma came on, I'd be dancing with the intro music, and then I'd run out of the room the second I knew that grandma's scream was about to come on. And then as soon as it was over, I'd run back in the room. But again, it's a TV show, not a movie, so it's not going to make the list. What you gonna do? Number one. Yes, this is where it's all been building up to. This is the reason for my phobia. The Witches. The original The Witches with Angelica Houston. dude, dude. Okay, this one we are going to talk a little bit about character design because just the scene alone where all the witches are locked in this room and they're like, all right, you can, literally let your hair down by means like they're taking all of their wigs off and they are taking their shoes off because they don't have toes. And, a lot of them just ended up like they had men actually instead of women just so they didn't have to pay for bald caps and stuff like that. And, it was effective. But Angelica Houston's character design when she is taking off her face and her skin, basically, and out pops the Grand High Witch. Now, mind you, I believe that Jim Carrey for The Grinch had to have CIA torture training to get into all of that prosthetics and makeup. Angelica Houston was in all of that. And I can only imagine how long she had to stay buried in those prosthetics as she's just Doug Jonesified. No notes. No notes. It's perfection. But whether we're talking about that whole scene in general, and I will say, like, it doesn't super count as just that being the character effect that's scary because it's the act of all of these regular looking women taking off their hair and skin and becoming these horrifying creatures underneath. I think that counts more towards the thing that you're seeing happening on top of character design. But then you also have like the grandma being poisoned, the parents being off screened, the scene where they're trying to do horrible things to a baby and they're laughing about it. All of that's great. But for me, the mouse transformation scene. And yes, I know this whole time I've been saying I have a phobia of rats, and this is a mouse transformation scene. And surprisingly, I do not have that big of an issue with mice. However, the few shots you get of the in between, again, Jim Henson's work, Jim Henson, but those scenes where you see this little boy who just wanted some chocolate, even though obnoxious as he was, and he is slowly turning into a rodent, as all these horrifying looking creature women are laughing in the audience. That is 1/3 of the reason why to this day I cannot handle RATSs. Just no. That is an effective film. And I did watch most of the Anne Hathaway remake. And again, Anne Hathaway is phenomenal. And in all honesty, when I got to their scene with all of the transformations, I had to stop because I could not handle it. But I couldn't handle it because of this original movie. So the original movie is still the one that gets the credit for all of this. And again, just the character design of Angelica Houston versus Anne Hathaway is leaps and bounds more amazing. And again, in Angelica Houston, when she gets transformed at the end, and that thing, Cronenberg took notes. I'm telling you right now, when he was making The Fly, he was taking notes from the witches, and I will fact check that after I do this to see what year that got made and if that might actually be accurate, because I would not be surprised. That movie was messed up, man. It was messed up. It messed me up. To this day, it's still like I'll enjoy watching it, but I'm squinting. I'm definitely squinting. And well done. Good for them. Good for them on making something that has lasted and held up through the treads of time. Good for them. So that's my list of the top 10 most traumatizing moments in kids' movies, not Disney super included. I'll do that list later. I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any movies on here that you haven't seen that you want to take a look at from this recommendation, please put it in the comments below and let me know what you think. I would love to hear what your top 10 are. Please put those in the comments below. Again, this is just stuff that I've seen that I actually thought got to me. It is obviously going to be different for everyone else, but I'm beyond fascinated to hear what you have to say about it. Please, let's get the conversation going, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Obscure Girl, and the rest is confetti. One last thing, everyone. This is Obscure Girl coming to you from outside of time and space. To let you know, I have officially started a Patreon page. I really want to get this channel going, and I'm hoping with this Patreon page that I can end up affording better equipment, better sound equipment, better lighting equipment, and just things that can make these videos better all the time. So the first tier has already been put on the Patreon page, and in that first $5 tier, you can help suggest future videos, help vote on future videos, at least vote for one video that I do per month, as well as get some behind the scenes content. And everyone that uh, helps donate to the Patreon page will end up getting an end credits at the end of each video. So, as well as, possibly eventually special shout outs as well. So, please give a look, give a like to my Patreon page. It'll be in the description for all my videos, as well as on the description for the channel itself and on the Facebook page. Also, if you haven't already, please check out the Facebook page. But let's really try and get these conversations going. Let's make this channel grow. Let's see what we can do together. Thank you so much.